Hello everyone, this is Logan589XP here for part 2 of my discussion on Nintendo in 2021 here on the Nin-Cast on January 11th of 2021. If you have not seen part 1 yet, then click off this video right now and go watch part 1 because we are going to be picking up immediately where I left off. And with that being said, let's continue. So, previously, I talked about the Zelda 35th anniversary stuff, so now that we're done with that, let's talk about the long-awaited releases. I'm talking Pikmin 4, I'm talking Bayonetta 3, and yes, I'm talking about Metroid Prime 4. Is there a shred of a chance that's happening this year? Pikmin 4, honestly, at this point, I have no idea. It's been in development for 5 years. I mean, remember, it was like September of 2015, I think, when there was that interview with Eurogamer where Miyamoto was like, oh yeah, we're working on Pikmin 4, and it's like almost done. 5 years later. And nothing! Not even a logo! Like, at least Bayonetta 3 and Metroid Prime have a logo. We didn't even get that. We haven't even gotten an official press release or nothing. The only proof that the game exists is that Miyamoto says it exists. That's it. If it wasn't for Miyamoto, we would never know that this game even exists. It's weird to me that Nintendo even let him basically announce the game on his own, because that would never happen. Like, could you imagine if there was some random interview at Sakurai, like in early 2018, where he was just like, oh yeah, we're working on the next Smash Bros. That would never happen. That would never happen in a million years. But apparently, Nintendo lets Miyamoto just say, oh yeah, we're working on Pikmin 4. And then 5 years later, it has yet to materialize. Not even a logo. Nothing. And yes, I do think it is still in development. But, well, at the same time, then maybe it's not that surprising the game has taken so long, because Pikmin 3 took a long time to come out. Pikmin 3, fun fact, was originally in development for the original Wii. But then, because it took so long to make, and it never came out, they eventually delayed it to the Wii U, and it eventually ended up becoming one of the, first big Wii U titles in 2013. So, the game did eventually come out, but it came out, years after it was announced. So, maybe Pikmin 4 not being out yet makes sense, but obviously a lot of people are really frustrated with that, especially when we got Pikmin 3 Deluxe last year, and and a lot of people kind of felt like that was a bit of a tease, like, come on, where's Pikmin 4? Where's Pikmin 4? But yeah, will we get Pikmin 4 though? I mean, at this point, I have no clue. What about Bayonetta 3 though? Bayonetta 3, I think, actually has a very real shot of being this year. So, Platinum's last game, for Nintendo at least, was Astral Chain, that came out in 2019. And then they announced Bayonetta 3 in 2017. It's 2021, and we have not seen the game since 2017. And the only thing we've ever heard since then is that the game is still on track, still in development. The same kind of stuff we've heard for other games. Like Pikmin 4. It's still in development, we're still working on it. We promise. So, I feel like now is the time. Bayonetta 3... we have to at least get a trailer this year. There's no way that we're gonna go into, the 4th year and have nothing. We have had more information on Prime 4 than Bayonetta 3. That does not make sense. So yeah, Bayonetta 3. It's gotta be coming this year. It has to be this year, right? If it's not this year, we gotta at least get a trailer. Come on. Come on, it's time. It's time, Platinum and Nintendo, to finally show it again. It's time. And last, Metroid Prime 4. Well, here's one thing I can say about Metroid Prime 4. We are not going to get Prime 4 this year. Why? Because they restarted development in 2019. If they did not restart development, it would probably be coming out this year. Or if not this year, next year. But because of that restart from early 2019... that we might get a trailer. I would not be surprised if at E3, again, assuming we got E3 at all, but I talked about E3 and Directs in part 1 if you haven't seen it already. Again, if you haven't seen it, go watch it. But yeah, in part 1 I did talk about Directs and E3 and stuff, and I said that if we do get E3 this year, assuming vaccines and all that stuff are available, then yes, we will get a Direct at E3. And if we get a Direct at E3, I will say this now, I think there is a good chance we will get at least a trailer or a teaser, like a proper teaser where we actually see gameplay and stuff 4, Metroid Prime 4. But it's not going to come out this year. I don't think anyone's expecting it to come out this year, though, anyway, so that's not that big of a deal, but yeah. Pikmin 4, who knows? Bayonetta 3 should be this year. Prime 4, we will probably get at least something for it this year. And with that being said, we've kind of talked about all the games at this point, so let's go ahead and move on to hardware with the Nintendo Switch Pro. Something that, as of late, has become something people have talked about again. Now, of course, we've been talking about the Switch Pro for years at this point. Basically, ever since late 2018, early 2019, people have been talking about it. And what's the state of it? Well, actually, for the first time ever, we actually have actual evidence that it exists. Because recently, I forget the guy's name, so apologies to the person that did this, but someone recently data mined the latest Switch update, and they found references to an OLED display and 4K support. Now, it didn't say 4K resolution, but it did say 4K, and there was references to a OLED display. If that is not proof that a Switch Pro is happening, I don't know what is. It's literally right there in the code. Why would Nintendo put it there if it was not going to happen? Now, we don't know anything specific. Again, we don't know, like, what does 4K mean? Does 4K mean Xbox One S, where, like, it's 4K YouTube and stuff, but the games are still 1080p, and it just upscales to 4K? Or is it going to be like the PS4 Pro or Xbox One X, which is what people would preferably want in this case, where the games actually run at a higher resolution? We don't know yet. Or maybe there'll be DLSS, which I think is the perfect thing they should do. I think that the Switch Pro should have DLSS 2.0. It would be amazing, but that's probably a bit of a pipe dream. But what we do know is there's going to be an OLED display. We don't know if it's going to be 720p or 1080p. I'm hoping it's a 1080p display personally, but if it's a 720p display, it'll still be an upgrade over the current Switch, so it's fine. And I mainly play the Switch in docked mode anyway. And speaking of docked mode, I'm not sure if this was in the code or not, or if this was just a separate thing that came alongside it, but I also saw something about maybe the dock really is going to be the thing that allows it to hit 4K. Because for a long time now, even as far back as 2016, like, remember 2016 when there was, like, Emily Rogers versus Happy Nintendo Fan, like, you know, the AMD console versus the NVIDIA hybrid, that whole thing? I still remember those days pretty vividly, actually. And of course, we all know who won that one, the NVIDIA hybrid, of course. But even back then, people were talking about an external GPU dock that would allow for, you know, better resolution or better graphics, better frame rate, etc. And people have been talking about, well, we have the Switch Lite, which is handheld only. We have the Switch Regular, which is handheld and docked. So with the Switch Pro, because its primary purpose would be to have better specs, would it be docked only? Or basically, would it just be a regular console? And personally, I would not have a problem with that, because again, as I already talked about, I mainly play the Switch in docked mode anyway, and I'll still have my regular Switch. I'm not going to get rid of it. So if I wanted to play in handheld mode anyway, I still could. But from what it sounds like, we're actually going to be getting both. The console itself will still be, you know, the tablet. It'll have the Joy-Con sliders. Maybe the Joy-Cons will be different because they might not fit. We don't know. But, and of course, hopefully they'll fix the drift, but we'll see how that goes. Basically, from what we've heard, according to the code, the same Tegra chip that's in the newest Switch revision, as in the Switch Lite and the 2019 regular Switch, which is the codenamed Mariko for those of you who follow that kind of stuff. The Mariko chip, aka Tegra 1X Plus. Or sorry, Tegra X1 Plus, not 1X. The Tegra X1 Plus, basically, or the Tegra X1 Refresh, whatever. You know what I'm talking about. We'll just say Mariko for the rest of this. So it has the Mariko chip from those newer systems. But according to what we've heard, the Mariko chip in the Switch Pro will be the same as it is in those consoles, but the clock speed is going to be higher, and the dock is going to have like the ability to hit 4K. And whether this means they're going to have a GPU in the dock, or they're going to have DLSS technology in the dock, or whatever, it sounds like we might be getting both, where the console will still be, you know, it will still be a hybrid, But when you're playing it docked mode, you'll be able to get higher resolutions and higher frame rates. But if you're playing in handheld mode, it'll basically be the same as if you were playing the regular Switch now. Or something like that. Again, we don't know. This is all speculation. This is not 100%. The only thing that is confirmed for sure is the OLED display and 4K support, as well as the increased clock speed on the CPU. But that's it. We have no idea how the dock or the GPU is going to work. But personally, I'm hoping for basically cramming in as much stuff as they can. Better GPU, DLSS 2.0. Like, I want all the things because I have a 4K display. I have 4K consoles. I already have the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X, and I'm going to be replacing them with the PS5 and the Series X later this year when they're actually available. And I want to be able to play Splatoon 2 and Smash and Breath of the Wild 2 and all that stuff at higher resolutions on my 4K screen, and that would be amazing. So that's my hope, but yeah. But one thing I can say is it's happening. There's stuff in the code. It's going to happen at this point. So what about the release date? Well, normally I would have said September because that's when the Switch Lite came out. And also that's when they've generally released other revisions like the 2DS, for example, and the 2DS XL. But actually, I'm gonna change it a little bit. I did not mention this in part 1 when I was talking about Breath of the Wild 2. But a belief I have had for over a year now is that the Switch Pro, when it does happen, will launch alongside Breath of the Wild 2. Because come on, it's marketing gold for Nintendo. The long-awaited sequel to one of the best games ever made. Obviously, you can have your opinion on whether or not it is the best game ever made or whatever. I love Breath of the Wild. It's one of my favorite games ever. But I'm not gonna sit here and preach to you that it's the best game ever. but they can have marketing that's like, the sequel to one of the most critically acclaimed games of all time, now on more powerful hardware, Nintendo Switch Pro, best on Nintendo Switch Pro, whatever. They can market the hell out of that. So they're totally gonna do that. Like, we had the original Breath of the Wild launch on Switch. It would make sense for Breath of the Wild 2, their most anticipated game right now, to launch alongside their hotly anticipated, hotly rumored, hotly wanted Switch Pro. It makes all the sense in the world. So yeah, whenever Breath of the Wild 2 comes out, the Switch Pro will be right there alongside it. That's my belief, at least. But enough of the Switch Pro. Let's move on to Switch Online and Switch OS updates. This part's going to be fairly small because there's not a ton to talk about. First things first, Game Boy or Nintendo 64? What's going to be next? So in 2018, we got NES. In 2019, we got the SNES. And in 2020, we got Squat. So what about 2021? Are we going to get N64? Are we going to get Game Boy? Are we going to get Game Boy Advance? Are we going to get DS? Even though it doesn't really make any sense. What's next? Is there anything next? Well, we have heard vague comments from darn it, I'm butchering his name because I haven't said his name as much, and we'll actually get into that a little later. But what's his name? Yeah. The current president of Nintendo. I'm gonna butcher his name trying to say it. I'll save me trying to say his name right for later. Yeah. Stop. I'm gonna stop trying to say the name. The current president of Nintendo in Japan, we'll just say that for right now, has talked several times about improving the service and improving its value and stuff. And for the most part, that hasn't really panned out yet. But obviously N64 and Game Boy would be a good way of doing that. So are we going to be getting it? Well, I mean, I'm not sure because as I talked about before, I do think a Zelda 3D collection is coming in part 1. And it'd be kind of weird to launch an N64, like, Switch Online thing alongside that. Because they wouldn't have Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask in the 64 Online thing because they want you to buy the collection. Even though it would come to the online service like a year or two later. I don't know. It's kind of weird. I'm not really sure how they would make that work. But, so for that reason alone, I kind of feel like if we do get another one, it'll be Game Boy and then N64. We're not going to get GameCube. I've seen people talk about GameCube and even Wii, and it's like, okay, you guys are going way off the deep end. They're not doing that. If we ever get Game Boy and Wii, it'll be like $20 eShop releases because the games are new enough and modern enough and wanted enough that they can, put it on the eShop for $20. People will be cool with it. But N64, they couldn't do that. That has to be unless they charge like $5 for it like they did on the Wii U. It would have to be, on that. So, So, N64 or Game Boy, I think between the two, honestly, I think Game Boy, like all the Game Boys, Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, I think those are probably going to happen before N64. But of course, I'd rather have N64 first, if we get anything at all. And last here for this section, themes. Are we going to get themes? Unfortunately, the answer to that is going to be a no. Of all the features people have wanted for the Switch, that's the number one. Like, early on, people wanted, party chat and messages, and I mean, that would still be nice, but we've reached the point now where it doesn't really matter. At least party chat doesn't matter, because everyone uses Discord now. No one even uses Xbox Live or PlayStation, party chat as much as they used to anyway. So, like, why would that be any different for Nintendo? Like, even if, right now, they added in party chat for console-wide, I guarantee you not that many people would even use it, because everyone uses Discord. Everyone uses Discord for every game on every console now. So, like, why even bother? So for me, it's like, it should be there. I want to make that crystal clear. They should have messages. They should have party chat. They should have all that stuff that the other consoles have. But the reality of the situation is, it wouldn't matter even if they did it at this point. Like, messages would be nice, but party chat wouldn't matter at this point, because everyone uses Discord. But, themes. That's the one thing everyone wants. Everyone wants themes, and I do too, because even though I don't really have a problem with just the regular black thing, like, there was a lot of cool themes on the 3DS, and you have a theme section on the Switch. Why won't you sell themes? We want themes. This is one of those times where, like, the business side and the consumer side line up perfectly. Nintendo would get a crap ton of money from selling themes to us, like they did on the 3DS, with, scrolling backgrounds and music and custom icons and all that stuff. Also the same thing that they have on the PS4. The PS4 has basically the same thing as the 3DS themes, where they got custom backgrounds, they got custom icons, they got custom sound effects, like the same way it is on 3DS and the PS4, and presumably the PS5, because PS5 will be getting themes at some point. I assume it would work the same way it does on PS4. Just do that for like a couple of bucks or whatever. Throw it on like a theme shop on the Switch, and free money. And people would love it. I love it. You'd love it. We'd all love it. We all want them to do it. We will give you money for themes, and you refuse to give it to us. So yeah, again, this is one of those rare situations where, like, what would make sense. Huh? No. Yeah, this is one of those situations where, like, Nintendo can make a crap ton of money, and we would be happy. But at this point, we're not getting themes. I've accepted that already. If you want themes right now, you gotta go and mod your Switch. You can actually get a lot of neat themes. They don't have music or anything like that, and they don't have scrolling backgrounds, but you can get some neat looking themes if you mod your Switch with like atmosphere and stuff like that. But that's a whole thing for another time. But yeah, themes, that's the one thing I would want from the Switch OS at this point, but we're not gonna get it, so yeah. So, I guess with that being said, that's pretty much everything in terms of, well, games for this year. But before we get into my kind of closing thoughts and also talking a little bit about 2022 and beyond, I want to talk about some personal non-game related wishes for Nintendo. Mainly regarding the Directs. Now, I talked about the Directs in part 1. But that was mainly about whether or not we were going to actually get Directs. I didn't talk about what I wanted in the Directs themselves. Because there are actually quite a few things I want in Directs that we have not had for a while now. And it has nothing to do with the games. First things first, I want skits back. You know what I'm talking about. I'm talking the Reggie Iwata fight. I'm talking Reggie firing Bill. I'm talking, Reggie's not anymore. I'm talking the Reggie and like the Yokai Watch and the donuts. I'm talking, we had Iwata and Miyamoto and Reggie as Muppets. I'm talking that. I want that back. Even if it's only like once a year and they only do it during E3, I want that back. I miss the skits a lot. It's one of those things that no one talks about, and I get it because it's not technically important, but I really miss that stuff. That was one of the things that made the Iwata era of Nintendo so special to me, was like the skits. I love those skits. Like, I really wish they would do that. I mean, they kind of did one in 2019-ish. Not really. Like they had, they had Bowser there and stuff, but that wasn't really a skit. Like, I want the Iwata style skits where they were, more goofy and funny and stuff. But yeah, that Reggie Iwata fight is like still amazing all these years later. That is easily my favorite skit they've ever done. There's a lot of skits that they've done that I like. That's my favorite one, easily. The Reggie Iwata fight. That was so awesome. But yeah, can we get more of that? Like, I want more skits. I really miss skits and directs. Also, add more personalities, because nowadays we just have what I like to call the generic announcer, because let's be real here, that's basically what he is. We just have the generic announcer for the directs, and then we get, like, no one in them. Like, no one is in them anymore. Maybe we get Koizumi at the very beginning, and that's it. That's it. Like, what happened to Bill? What happened to, what's the other guy's name? I don't think he works there anymore, but, like, Damon Baker? I don't know. Like, what happened to the other guys? What happened to even Miyamoto or Aonuma? Like, what happened to everyone? Everyone just disappeared. I don't understand why they did that. Okay, I know why, but, like, why? Like, remember back in the Iwata days? Heck, even, like, a couple of years after he passed, when they would have, they had Iwata, they had Reggie, they had Miyamoto, they had Bill, they had Damon Baker when he was still at Nintendo, they had, other various people, they had other developers from, like, third parties show up. Like, they don't do that anymore. They never have people in the directs anymore. They have, like, at most, Koizumi or Takahashi at, like, the very, very beginning, and then that's it. We don't get to see him ever. And I don't like that. I want them to bring back more of the personalities. Like, especially Bill. Like, Bill still works there. Bill is still at Nintendo. He still works at Treehouse, just like he has for the last, like, 25 years, and he doesn't show up in anything anymore. The last direct he was in 2016, like the September 2016 one, which also, by the way, was the last direct we had before the Switch era revamp happened, where they changed the logo and the format and stuff like that, where they basically abandoned all the Iwata era stuff. Like, where's Bill? Like, I want to see Bill again, because he still works there. We don't even get to see him. I think the only time we ever get to see him now is at Treehouse. Even then, that's kind of rare. Like, I can't, like, I'm pretty sure he was at Treehouse in, like, 2017 or 2018, but that was it. Like, we don't get to see him at all anymore. I wish we got to see Bill more often. And yeah, like, and, yeah, I was kind of pushing this off because, again, I couldn't say his name right, but also, where's the CEO? Like, Iwata, for as long as he was alive, was in every single direct. Reggie was also, for the longest time, in every single direct. In Europe, Shibata was in every single European direct. And then starting with the Switch era, that just fell off a cliff. I mean, of course, Iwata was gone, so that made sense. And we already knew Kimishima, who was the current president at the time, had no interest in any of that stuff, and that was fine. But the new one, who is I can't say his name correctly. I'm sorry. Okay, Furukawa. Okay, I'm probably butchering his name, but that Furukawa. That's the name of the current CEO that came in after Kimishima left in 2018. He has not showed up in anything at all whatsoever. Like, Reggie, like once the Switch era started, they dialed back on having people show up in directs anyway, but they would still have Reggie for E3 and stuff. And then that just went away too. So, like, yeah, like, where's the CEO? Where's Furukawa? We had Iwata in all those directs for years. We had Reggie in all those directs for years. We had Shibata in all those directs for years. And we even had Reggie and even, Doug Bowser show up, in 2019 and stuff. So it's like, where's Furukawa? He has not made a single public appearance in anything. Not a single video, not a single direct, not a single presentation. Even Kimishima, who was notoriously very much in the background, even he showed up in, like, 2017 for the Switch presentation. But Furukawa has yet to make a single appearance. One! Even though, on paper, it would make all the sense in the world for him to show up. He's not like Kimishima, where he's just like, the old business guy in the background. Like Furukawa, on paper, would be a pretty alright successor to, like, obviously no one can replace Iwata. No one can ever truly replace him. Same with Reggie. No one can ever truly replace Reggie. But he could have been, like he could have worked I would have liked to see him at least every now and then, but no, we don't get to see the president anymore. And like, you know, Phil Spencer is all over the place. You know, Sony has, you know, Mark Cerny and whatnot. Nintendo, they don't have anyone right now. The only person that makes any consistent appearances is Sakurai. He's the only one left from like the Iwata era that still shows up on a regular basis. And even then, that won't last forever. Because once Smash DLC is done, that's it until the next game. So like, it might sound really weird for me to be like so like up in arms over this, but like I really want them to bring back skits. I really want them to bring back more personalities, and I really want to see, you know, the CEO show up every once in a while, because like, come on. I think it would make the directs better. Or if, like, I don't know. I just wish he would show up more. We have not seen him once. I know what he looks like because there are pictures of him out there, but he has not appeared in a single direct, a single video, a single tweet, nothing. He has not appeared anywhere, and I don't like that. But yeah, so those are my personal Nintendo Direct wishes, basically, that have nothing to do with the games. Bring back the skits, even if they only do them like during E3 or whatever. Bring back, you know, Bill and other people like that. You know, have more people appear in the directs and actually talk, and not just have the generic announcer the whole time. And have Furukawa show up once in a while. He doesn't have to be there every single time like Iwata was, but at least show up again. Like, at least show up during E3. Like, at least show up during E3. I mean, at least we're gonna have Doug Bowser. We know he's gonna be there every E3 probably from here on out, but I don't know. Like, we got, like, I don't know. So yeah, that's my little, I guess, rant there on stuff I want in directs again that has nothing to do with the games. So with that whole thing done and over with, let's go ahead and round out our Nintendo in 2021 discussion here, talking a bit about the Switch in 2022 and beyond. So, first things first, the next 3D Mario. We know this is happening, even though it's not officially confirmed by anyone. Nintendo has had several listings over the last year for 3D Mario. Now, to be fair, that could have been for 3D All-Stars, although I really doubt it. So, that plus the fact that people have been talking about it for a while. I mean, if they're doing a Breath of the Wild 2, Odyssey 2 is probably happening. Now, I'm not saying it'll 100% be an Odyssey 2 and not just another 3D Mario, but because I've gone back and forth on this, like, will the next 3D Mario be Odyssey 2 or will it be like a brand new game? I'm not sure. I mean, realistically, it'll probably be Odyssey 2, which is fine, but actually, yeah, it'll probably be Odyssey 2. And then, like, you know, the next console will get a brand new game and everything. But yeah, so Odyssey 2 or the next 3D Mario, whatever it's going to end up being, that's like if Breath of the Wild 2 comes out this year, then Odyssey 2 is coming out next year. Next up, I kind of teased this a little bit earlier, but the next Monolith Soft game, which could be a variety of things. So, one, as far as we can tell, they are working on Xenoblade 3. They also are working on a brand new fantasy IP that we have not seen yet, which is also something that I didn't talk about earlier, but now that I'm actually here, that's something we could also possibly see at E3, is we might be able to finally see their new fantasy IP, because they've had artwork for it up on their website for years. Like, you know, okay, like, let me give you a comparison. Atlas, you know Atlas, right? You know, the people that make Persona and SMT and all that stuff. They have their own similar kind of project called Project Re-Fantasy, who is being made by the director of Persona 3, 4, and 5. It's been in development for years, and we have not seen anything on it, basically. Well, guess what? Monolith Soft. This has been on their website since at least, like, 2018. Like, this new fantasy medieval IP or whatever. And we have not seen squat about it. It hasn't been announced officially, but it's on the website. We know they're working on it, and we haven't seen anything on it yet, so. I mean, realistically, will we see Xenoblade 3 first, or will we see the new fantasy IP first? I'm going to say the new fantasy IP, because I'm willing to bet Xenoblade 3 has not been in development as long as the new fantasy IP is, so we're probably going to see that first. But yeah, a new Monolith Soft game, period. It's definitely going to, we're going to get at least one more Monolith Soft game on the Switch. Probably the new fantasy IP, but also Xenoblade 3 might be happening as well. I don't think either of them are going to come out this year, to be fair, but I do think that, like, probably the fantasy IP has the most likely chance to actually be announced this year, even if it doesn't come out this year. Now we're going to get into the stuff that has absolutely nothing going for it, except for me, just pure speculation, and that is, again, I also kind of talked about this a little earlier, but what will Sakurai do after Ultimate is finished? Because, as I talked about in part 1, I think Volume 2 really is the end. I mean, Sakurai has said it's the end, but we know that just because he says something is the end, that doesn't necessarily mean it is. But I really do think that Volume 2 is the end, for one simple reason. As I talked about in Part 1, why would Nintendo stretch Volume 2 across 2 years instead of 1 year like they did for Fighters Pass Volume 1? Simple, because they know Volume 2 is the last DLC, so they want to, stretch it for all it's worth. That's why we're not going to get a Volume 3. And again, as I said in Part 1, if we get Volume 3, that is awesome. But we're not going to get it. So, if we're not going to get Volume 3, then what's Sakurai going to work on? Because he's not going to immediately jump on the next Smash game. Like, when Bayonetta and Corrin came out in early 2016, when that was the end of Wii U and 3DS, he took a short break, and then he immediately started working on Ultimate. They started working on, like, the plan for Ultimate in the summer of 2016. So he basically went right from Smash 4 right into Ultimate. That will not happen this time, or at least I really don't think it will, because Volume 2 is going to end in 2021. It's going to end this year, assuming there isn't some kind of delay, and again, assuming there isn't a Volume 3. Like, December 2021 is probably when it's going to end. And the next console is not coming out until, like, 2023, till, like, late 2023 or early 2024. So unless they really want to get a Smash game out on launch day, which I don't think they're going to do, what is Sakurai going to work on? Because he's not going to immediately jump to the next Smash game, because there's going to be at least a couple years before they're going to really start to want to work on it. So, what's he going to work on? Well, if it's not going to be more DLC, then that must mean he's got to be working on something else. Because I don't think Sakurai is just going to sit there for like a year or two before working on the next Smash game. I think he's going to want to work on something else. Similar to what he did after he was finished with Brawl, he began work on a brand new project that wasn't related to anything he worked on before. No Kirby, no Smash Bros, but he did have some experience with the franchise thanks to Brawl. I'm of course talking about his reimagining / revitalization / reboot of the Kid Icarus franchise, which of course is Kid Icarus Uprising, which is still to this day one of the most critically acclaimed and beloved games on the 3DS, even though it's like an early release, like from 2012. People love that game, and people really want to see a new game. However, Sakurai said years ago that he doesn't want to do an Uprising 2 because he feels like the first game can't be topped. And fair enough, but maybe like a port could be viable or something, or like a remake. Maybe he'd be more cool with that. Although at the same time, Sakurai's kind of also talked about how he'd rather just make a new game instead of doing a port. Like, this is the reason why back in remember early 2018 when people were talking about, oh, is Smash Switch going to be a port? Is it going to be an enhanced port? Is it going to be a new game? That whole fiasco. Well, around that time, there was a quote floating around. I forget how long ago. I think this was in like 2015. I forget when it was from. But point is, there was a quote from an interview where Sakurai talks about how he personally is not a fan of porting his own games because he'd rather take that effort that he would go into porting the game rather just make a new game instead. Which was one of the reasons why I thought we were going to get a brand new game and it wasn't going to be a port. And what do you know? It was a new game and not a port or an enhanced port or any of that. It was a brand new game. Plus, like, why would they have that, why would they, like, make a big fancy trailer for Ultimate just for it to not be, like, a brand new game? That would make no sense. But that's all in the past. That's all, early 2018 stuff. We're long past that point, obviously. But so that right there also makes me feel like a remake or a port isn't really going to happen because, again, Sakurai said that basically he doesn't really think that would be worth doing. Like, he didn't say that for Kid Icarus specifically. He just said for any game he's made, which is why I applied it to Smash and why I thought Smash was going to be a new game and not a port. That why should I work on a remake or a port when I could just make a new game? So, we're not going to get a remake or a port of Kid Icarus. We will either get a new game or we will get nothing. So, will we get a new game? Well, again, at least a couple of years ago, he was very much, no, I do not want to do a new game. Less so because he didn't want to do a new game, and more so just because, like, he thought that he couldn't top the original. Of course, his mind could have changed. People change, obviously. Maybe now he'd be more up for a Uprising 2 for the Switch to fill the gap between, Ultimate and whatever in the next Smash game on the next system. Similar to what it was between Brawl and 3DS and Wii U. But I'm not sure. Actually, I'm gonna make a prediction. Assuming he doesn't immediately jump into the next Smash game, which he probably won't, because again, there's like the console's not gonna be coming out like immediately, basically, so he has time to do something else. I would not be surprised if he worked on a brand new franchise. Like, you know how he resurrected Kid Icarus, right? He was the first person in like 20 years to make a new Kid Icarus game. What if he did that with a different franchise? I've seen people talk about what if he made like a new, like, oh, I don't know, like, I'm just spitballing here, Ice Climbers. I mean, not that he would do Ice Climbers, but like he'd resurrect some other old IP basically that hasn't seen the light of day in a long time, and reimagine that the way he did for Uprising. I think that'd be cool. I think people would rather have Uprising 2, but since that's not going to happen, like, I think, yeah, him resurrecting another classic property would be cool. I think that would definitely be neat. But yeah, he's definitely going to be working on something, because there's not going to be any more DLC after Volume 2, and the next Smash game is not going to be coming out until like 2026 at the earliest. So there's going to be this big fat gap where he's not going to be working on Smash, at least for like 1 to 2 years. So yeah, it's like he's probably going to do another game, but if it's not going to be Kid Icarus, then what's it going to be? Well, we'll have to see what happens there. And speaking of franchises that have not seen the light of day in a while, to round off our discussion here, our last topic, what about dead IPs? Well, quote-unquote dead IPs. I'm talking Star Fox. Well, Star Fox isn't as dead as the one I'm about to mention afterwards, but Star Fox, F-Zero, stuff like that. The franchises that they're not like Ice Climbers or whatever, where they're just one-off games. I'm talking, franchises that are actually franchises and people actually, like, really want to see new entries in. Like, Star Fox for the longest time was a dead franchise, like F-Zero was. But then, of course, in 2016, we got Star Fox Zero, which was met with mixed reception, but still, it was new Star Fox. But also, the results of how that game sold might have dissuaded Nintendo from wanting to do another Star Fox. And as for F-Zero, well, we know that the guys that worked on F-Zero GX, which was the last installment, basically, that came out in 2004, so it's been 15, 16 years since we've had a new F-Zero. And it, like, yeah, it's stuff like that. Well, I remember they talked about how they'd be totally up for a new F-Zero, to work on a new F-Zero. And of course, we know people have talked about, well, what about Shinen Multimedia, who are the guys behind Fast Racing Neo and stuff. Like, they've talked about a new F-Zero being something they'd like to do. So, like, clearly there's interest in a new F-Zero. The question is, will it ever happen? Well, if Star Fox can come back, F-Zero will come back. It's just a matter of time. It's not like Earthbound / Mother, where, like, that franchise is not coming back, and it has nothing to do with... It's solely because... That's not, like, that's a franchise, but it's not a franchise that goes on forever, like all the other Nintendo IPs normally are. Because, Earthbound was the vision of a single creator, which of course was Shigesato Itoi. He made 3 games, and he has made it very clear that that is all he wants to do. He's happy with those 3 games, and he has no desire to make a new one. And Nintendo has absolutely no reason to make a new game. Plus, I'm pretty sure Itoi actually owns at least part of the rights to it, which is why you see his name. Like, for example, when Lucas came out in Smash Wii U, in the copyright section on the website, it said Nintendo / Shigesato Itoi, because he owns part of the rights to the franchise. It's also why Itoi and his company, and on his website, you can buy Earthbound and Mother-related stuff on there, because he owns part of the rights. Because I always found that weird. It's like Nintendo is just letting him do whatever he wants with it. But one, Nintendo probably doesn't care about Earthbound. But second, he owns part of the rights. So even if Nintendo, for whatever reason, even though they would never, ever, ever, ever do this, even if Nintendo wanted to make a new Earthbound / Mother game, which, Earthbound, the West, Mother in Japan, etc., you all already know this, they would have to get permission from Itoi, and Itoi has made it very clear that at least he is not directing another one. So Mother's dead. Like, Mother's dead. Like, it just is. That's how it is. But no one's really clamoring for a new game anyway. Plus, we're gonna be getting Mother 4 in the form of Oddity at some point. Yeah, remember, if you don't know what Oddity is, remember Mother 4 from like years and years ago, and it never came out? Well, earlier last year, they put out a trailer for a game called Oddity, which was basically Mother 4 rebranded. It's Mother 4 in all but name. It's literally the game they were already making, Mother 4, but they rebranded it because they're worried that Nintendo was going to shoot them down, and yeah, I don't blame them. I'm honestly kind of surprised Nintendo, because Nintendo never shut down Mother 4. They never did. But the Mother 4 team put the project on hiatus because they wanted to rebrand and retool the game so they wouldn't get striked by Nintendo. Plus, that means that they could put Oddity on like the Switch and stuff like that, because obviously Nintendo is not going to let them put that on the Switch, right, as Mother 4. But as Oddity, a game that is Mother 4 in all but name, that I think will totally be on the Switch. I think there will absolutely be a Switch version of that game at some point, but again, that's a whole thing for another time. But yeah, Star Fox, F-Zero, that stuff, I mean, that's not happening anytime soon. I think Punch-Out, that could happen. I mean, 2009 was the last entry granted, but but actually Next Level Games was recently acquired by Nintendo. Yeah, if you don't know this, recently Nintendo acquired like Next Level Games, which really is basically the same thing as as Sony acquiring Insomniac in 2019. It means nothing because Insomniac was basically already a first-party developer. And Next Level Games has already been a first-party developer for Nintendo for years and years, so them being acquired means absolutely squat. It's just, now it's official, basically, like it was with Insomniac. Now it's just official instead of being basically official. And of course, their most recent game is Luigi's Mansion 3, which came out in 2019, so, you know, they're probably working on something new, but it's probably not a new Punch-Out, but I don't know. But yeah, as for the, quote, dead IPs, like Star Fox, F-Zero, Punch-Out, they're not going to be probably happening anytime soon, but I don't think you should count them out. I think all three of those franchises will come back eventually. It's just a matter of when. And with that being said, well, that's it. We hit the 40-minute mark here, which again is kind of longer than I'd like. I want to have these be 30 minutes at least, but you know, I'm splitting it up into 2 parts, so I guess it's not that bad. But anyways, that was my thoughts on Nintendo in 2021, as well as some talk about 2022 and beyond. This year, if there's one thing I can say about this year for sure with Nintendo, is that it will definitely be a better year than last year. It literally will be, because there's a pattern. 2017, launch year for the Switch. Amazing. 2018, with the exception of Smash, meh. 2019, not as good as 2017, but still a pretty solid year. 2020, another, you know, with the exception of Animal Crossing, another, like, you know, whatever year. 2021 means it's going to be a good year, because there's a pattern. 2019, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, therefore 2021. 2021 is going to be the year where things are going to be good again. Yeah, no disrespect to Animal Crossing and anything, of course. No disrespect to Smash, of course, because, I mean, I love Smash. It's my favorite franchise. But, you know, if it wasn't for Smash in 2018, if it wasn't for Animal Crossing and Age of Calamity in 2020, you know, those years would have not been great. But 2021, again, Breath of the Wild 2. That's got to be this year. We're going to get Bayonetta 3, hopefully this year. We are going to, of course, get more DLC. We're going to be getting more updates for Animal Crossing. There will probably be new spin-offs. There'll probably be more ports. Like, there's going to be, like, it's going to be another good year, is my point. Like, it's not going to be the roller coaster that was last year. This year is going to be good. It's going to be a good year for Nintendo. And that is something I can say with absolute certainty, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what we get. And with that being said, this is Logan589XP, and I will see you guys next time.